Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a vision so powerful that it reaches back thousands of years, pulling ancient maps and sacred words into the center of today's political arena. Picture a dream spoken with the conviction of destiny, one that claims history, faith, and identity as its foundation. It is a vision that inspires millions, divides nations, and commands the attention of the world. Tonight, we are going to peel back the layers of this vision, not with slogans or sound bites, but through evidence, history, and hard realities. We will uncover the roots of an idea that some see as a long, overdue fulfillment, and others as a spark that could ignite a regional firestorm. This is not just a story about borders, it is a story about power, belief, and the collision of past and present. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you will see how one idea can shape the destiny of a nation and perhaps the fate of an entire region. The concept of Greater Israel is rooted in a mix of ancient religious texts, historical memory, and modern political ideology. It refers to a vision in which the territorial boundaries of the state would extend far beyond its current internationally recognized borders, often corresponding to descriptions found in biblical accounts. These descriptions outline lands stretching from the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordan River, and in some interpretations, even further into areas that today belong to neighboring countries. Proponents of this idea view it as the restoration of a historical homeland, a fulfillment of a divine promise, and a strategic necessity for national security. For them, the notion is not merely about geography, but about identity, sovereignty, and destiny, intertwining national pride with spiritual obligation. Over time, the concept has shifted from purely theological discussions within religious communities to a political agenda championed by certain factions, particularly those with nationalist or religious Zionist leanings. In the modern political arena, Greater Israel carries different shades of meaning depending on the speaker. For some, it represents an actual redrawing of borders to encompass more territory, while for others, it is symbolic, a reaffirmation of historical rights without necessarily requiring immediate annexation. Its presence in public discourse has significant consequences, as it directly challenges the status quo of the Middle East's geopolitical landscape. This vision can be deeply polarizing. It inspires strong support among those who see it as a rightful claim, while simultaneously provoking fear, anger, or resistance among neighboring states and communities who perceive it as an existential threat to their own sovereignty. As a result, Greater Israel is both an enduring ideal for some and a source of persistent tension and conflict in regional and international politics. The declaration of a historic and spiritual mission transforms a political objective into something that carries the weight of destiny. By framing such a plan in both historical and religious terms, the leader positions it not as a temporary policy or negotiable strategy, but as part of a grand, almost sacred continuum. This language evokes centuries of tradition, narratives of survival, and the belief in a divine or moral obligation to fulfill a particular vision. It also draws upon the emotional and cultural reservoirs of the population, where faith, identity, and history are deeply intertwined. When presented in this way, the mission transcends debates over practical governance, economic cost, or diplomatic consequences, because it is cast as something that cannot be compromised without betraying a higher calling. The use of such rhetoric has a powerful unifying effect on supporters, encouraging them to see the cause as a shared heritage that binds generations together. It situates contemporary political actions within a lineage of struggles and triumphs, implying that current leaders and citizens alike are merely stewards of an ancient promise. This framing also works to shield the agenda from criticism, as opponents may be portrayed as standing against not only political goals, but also the spiritual and historical essence of the nation. It suggests that the mission is inevitable, preordained, and resistant to external pressure, no matter the resistance from other nations or the global community. Such a narrative can justify bold, even risky decisions, as they are seen as steps toward fulfilling a timeless mandate rather than as conventional political gambles. By elevating a territorial or ideological aim into the realm of destiny, it becomes deeply entrenched in the national psyche, where rational debate is often overshadowed by emotional conviction and perceived moral necessity. Pursuing expanded borders, as envisioned in the Greater Israel concept, carries profound geopolitical implications that reach far beyond the immediate region. Any attempt to alter established boundaries challenges international agreements, United Nations resolutions, and decades of diplomatic frameworks that have sought to maintain a fragile balance in the Middle East. Such a move would inevitably be perceived by neighboring states as an act of territorial aggression, potentially triggering escalated tensions, military confrontations, or the collapse of peace accords. The redrawing of borders in such a contested region is rarely a matter of negotiation alone. It often inflames nationalist sentiment on all sides, prompting retaliatory measures and fueling cycles of mistrust. In the wider international arena, these actions could fracture existing alliances and invite economic sanctions or political isolation. Countries with strong interests in Middle Eastern stability, whether for strategic, economic, or security reasons, would be forced to reassess their relationships and policies. Global powers might respond by increasing military support to opposing sides, heightening the risk of proxy conflicts. Furthermore, the broader geopolitical narrative would shift, as the expansion could be framed as a precedent for other territorial claims worldwide, undermining international norms about sovereignty and the inviolability of borders. This, in turn, could embolden other nationalist movements or irredentist agendas in completely different regions, destabilizing not just the Middle East, but also global diplomatic order. Within the region itself, the demographic and political realities of incorporating new territories would present additional challenges, including governance disputes, integration issues, and potential uprisings among populations opposed to the change. In essence, the geopolitical consequences of such a plan extend far beyond ideology, shaping the strategic calculations of regional and world powers while creating new fault lines in an already volatile landscape. Framing an expansionist vision within a domestic political context has the potential to dramatically influence the internal dynamics of a nation. For supporters, the idea can serve as a powerful rallying cry, creating a sense of shared purpose and national pride. It can strengthen the leader's base, uniting various political and social groups under a common banner that blends patriotism with historical or cultural legitimacy. Such a narrative can also inspire younger generations to see themselves as participants in a defining moment of national history, fostering loyalty and long-term political alignment. However, the same vision can also become a source of deep division within society. Those who oppose it may view it as unrealistic, overly provocative, or damaging to the country's diplomatic standing, leading to political polarization. Civil discourse may become strained as debates shift from practical policy concerns to emotionally charged arguments about identity and destiny. In some cases, this can even manifest in protests, strikes, or organized opposition movements that challenge the legitimacy of the leadership's agenda. Economically, the focus on territorial or ideological expansion can divert resources from domestic priorities such as infrastructure, social welfare, or economic reform, sparking criticism from sectors of the population more concerned with immediate quality of life issues. Media narratives may also become sharply divided, with state or pro-government outlets portraying the plan as visionary and courageous, while independent or opposition voices frame it as reckless and destabilizing. Over time, the domestic impact is shaped not only by the vision itself, but by how effectively it is communicated, how inclusive the political process becomes, and whether the broader population perceives tangible benefits from its pursuit. In a deeply interconnected society, the push for such an agenda can thus unify and fracture the nation simultaneously, creating a lasting imprint on its political culture. Throughout history, leaders and movements in the region have invoked ancient promises, sacred texts, or historical maps to justify claims over contested lands. These precedents reveal a recurring pattern in which territorial ambitions are framed not merely as political or strategic goals, but as the fulfillment of a legacy that stretches back centuries. By grounding their vision in the authority of tradition and the weight of collective memory, such leaders aim to give their agendas a sense of inevitability and moral righteousness. In many cases, these historical references have been used to rally domestic populations, inspire loyalty, and foster resilience against external pressures, especially when facing international opposition or conflict. However, these same justifications often provoke strong resistance from other communities who see the claims as erasing their own histories and rights to the land. In the modern era, these appeals to antiquity can complicate diplomatic negotiations as they place the dispute in a framework that transcends contemporary politics, making compromise appear as a betrayal of heritage. Historical precedents also show that when territorial expansion is pursued under the banner of ancient entitlement, it can lock the parties into lasting confrontations that persist across generations, with each side reinforcing its position through education, media, and cultural narratives. This perpetuates a cycle in which past grievances remain as potent as present realities, leaving little room for pragmatic solutions. Additionally, drawing on historical or religious claims can mobilize diaspora communities and external supporters, further internationalizing the conflict and adding layers of complexity to peace efforts. In this way, historical precedents become both a source of inspiration for those pursuing the vision and a powerful obstacle for any movement toward reconciliation, embedding the territorial question deeply into the political and emotional fabric of the region. Any open pursuit of an expansionist vision is likely to provoke a strong international reaction, as it challenges established diplomatic norms and threatens the stability of an already volatile region. Global powers, particularly those with strategic, economic, or military interests in the Middle East, would quickly take positions either in support of or in opposition to the plan. Nations allied with the leadership advancing the vision might face pressure from their own populations or from other states to distance themselves, while adversaries would likely intensify diplomatic condemnation and seek to isolate the state on the world stage. International organizations, such as the United Nations, would likely issue statements, pass resolutions, or call for emergency sessions to address the situation, potentially leading to debates over sanctions or other punitive measures. Human rights groups and non-governmental organizations could amplify their advocacy, highlighting potential violations of international law and the impact on affected populations. In parallel, regional powers might respond by strengthening alliances, increasing military preparedness, or supporting opposing factions, raising the risk of proxy conflicts. Economic consequences could follow swiftly, with trade restrictions, investment withdrawals, or the suspension of aid altering the nation's economic trajectory. Public opinion abroad could also shift dramatically, influencing foreign policy in democratic countries where leaders are sensitive to voter sentiment. Additionally, the pursuit of such an agenda might reshape the state's global image, casting it either as a determined guardian of historical rights or as an aggressor undermining peace. The resulting polarization could entrench divisions in international forums, with some nations defending the vision as legitimate self-determination and others framing it as a destabilizing breach of international order. This dynamic ensures that the consequences of such a policy would extend far beyond regional politics, embedding it deeply into the fabric of global diplomacy. In conclusion, the vision of an expanded national territory framed as a historic and spiritual mission carries with it layers of historical precedent, domestic impact, geopolitical risk, and intense international scrutiny. It is not merely a political proposal, but a deeply charged narrative that draws upon ancient memory, national identity, and a sense of destiny. While it inspires passion among supporters and reinforces a sense of purpose, it also ignites strong opposition both at home and abroad, creating a complex web of challenges that reach far beyond borders. The pursuit of such an ambition will shape not only the future of the region, but also the broader currents of global politics, diplomacy, and peace efforts. Good luck to all who continue to study, debate, and engage with this issue in search of understanding, clarity, and a better path forward. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to think critically about one of the most sensitive and consequential topics of our time.